All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to the GE Nation. I hope you guys are all doing extremely well. I know we're doing great after fix that camera there, after a wild college football weekend. Uh, Unbelievable, guys. Wow. Are you recovered? That's the question I want to ask you. Have you recovered from Saturday? Um, we've had 5 straight days of football, guys. The NFL started on Thursday. We had a wild Friday night as well. Louisville bouncing back to beat UCF. Saturday was one of the craziest days of college football I have ever seen. 7 top 25 teams going down, 30% of the top 10 going down. 2 of those teams falling to unranked teams in the Sun Belt. Unbelievable. And Sunday we had all day NFL, and today we have Monday Night Football. So it's been an unbelievable weekend, guys. And we're here to kind of break that down a little bit more for you, taking your questions, your comments, kind of addressing some of the thoughts that we've had on some of the games. Also taking a look at the new AP poll that came out yesterday. We will have our official GE poll coming out today at 1 p.m. Central Time. Just like the AP comes out 1 p.m. every Sunday, ours will come out at 1 p.m. every Monday. I think it has nothing to do with the AP poll, had no bias or anything like that, because we continue to admit and continue to agree that the AP poll is very biased and bad and wrong and just terrible across the board. So we are going to be giving you our rankings today at 1 o'clock, but we do want to address the AP and kind of share this. You get a sneak preview of our thought process so you kind of know what to expect coming into this afternoon. But real quick, before we start diving into all the stuff we want to talk about today, big shout out SBO Kennels. Good morning. Had a great weekend. Obviously, not just from a game standpoint, but from a profit standpoint. SBO Kennels, man, you were one of our newest subscribers to the Expert Picks. And he says good cover CCD because Maryland was also one of our picks this week. And Maryland did cover. So thankfully, they came through for us after a bit of a slow start. Ended up blowing Charlotte out of the water. So big cover, extra win for us. Very excited about that. CCD says go Terps. They're 2-0. Big game against SMU this week. And as we've talked about in the Discord, maybe if they can stomp SMU pretty handily, big offense there. But if they can do that, might start getting some top 25 love. Who knows? But CCD, good morning. Good to have you here. Of course, Scotty B, good to have you. I hate it, man. I was sorry about the Baylor loss. I know... as you're saying, the penalties need to get cut. They need to be improved. The wide receivers need to find a way to get open downfield. So Shapen can have some time. The offensive lines get better. A bunch of things that Baylor certainly needs to work on. Need to be better with his special teams. Missing an extra point and a field goal in that first overtime are, that is a pretty big deal considering the game was tied, right? So you make that extra point, and you've won the game. You make the first kick in overtime, you probably win the game because BYU probably misses there. So, special teams, penalties, all those things have to improve. But Baylor's still a very, very good team. It is tough to win in Provo at night, especially against a good BYU team like that. So, Scotty, good to have you here this morning. Austin Pruitt, what is going on there? He says, I know Texas almost beat Alabama, but that does not mean they should be ranked. We'll be talking about that here in a second. Don't worry. Let's see here. Spencer Shane, say something nice about my Iowa State Cyclones. I'll say something nice. I will say a major congratulations to upsetting Iowa. Snapping your 6-game losing streak to the Hawkeyes at Kinnick Stadium, that is extremely impressive. It's not an easy thing to do. And we were torn on that game, Spencer. We were so torn when it came to that. Like, do you pick Iowa? They've won 6 straight. Their defense is still phenomenal. The offense wasn't great last year. They still won by 10. Or do you pick Iowa State, who, all they beat was Southeast Missouri, beat them by 32, but it was Southeast Missouri. Now they're coming on the road, young team. I was torn. But this Iowa State team, guys, is probably looking better than many thought. I think a lot of people had them around 6, 7 wins. They could be a little bit better than that. Matt Campbell doing a phenomenal job, and Iowa guys just, to me, just a dumpster fire. I mean, Petras, how can you continuously get worse? I mean, honestly, how can you be a veteran quarterback and continuously get worse every single week? And Iowa State, credit to them. What was it, like a 99-yard drive against that defense? A 99-yard drive to get into the end zone? I mean, that was pretty dang impressive. So, I'm happy for them. I know you're happy for them to win in Kinnick. That's not an easy feat. And not an easy thing to do, and they deserve that win. They deserve all the love and all in that win. I think a lot of people were rooting for Iowa State. I really do. I think a lot of people were rooting for Iowa State in that game because they were just so frustrated and just laughing at Iowa and how bad they were. So congratulations, Spencer, for that win. Logan Elliott, good morning. Man, I hate it for West Virginia, man, to lose by 13 in overtime. So throwing a pick six there at the end, I hate it. I hate it for you guys. Kansas, though. How about Kansas? Could be the real deal. The fact that Kansas and Vanderbilt both started the year 2-0, that's pretty unbelievable. And the Jayhawks looking legit this year. Not like a Big 12 title contender or anything like that, but they're a team that can flirt with bowl eligibility. They really could. The culture seems to have changed. The effort seems to have changed. Lance Leipold's doing a phenomenal job already. We knew this was one of the biggest, rebuilding projects, but the fact that they're 2 games in, they're undefeated at 2-0, and already have a conference win on the road at West Virginia, it's pretty dang impressive. And we're all talking about Scott Frost. I see John Sarian here. Also, big shout out to him. Good morning, John. Nice to see you. App State ran 82 plays to A&M's 38. We'll talk more on that in a second. But yeah, that's bad news. But John's saying, Scott Frost is going to get a great offensive coordinator. He's going to be a great offensive coordinator. He's just not Power 5 head coaching material. We're talking about the firing of Scott Frost so much. A little bit of a lesser school, West Virginia, Neil Brown, he's gone as well. It's not official yet by any means, but he'll be gone as well. To start 0-2, lose to Pittsburgh in heartbreaking fashion, then to turn around and lose a home game as a double-digit favorite to Kansas, he's done. West Virginia, everybody's, we're going to win the Big 12. We're going to do this with JT Daniels, and now you're 0-2. And Logan, I hate that for you, genuinely, but Neil Brown will be out of Morgantown very soon. Let's see. Cash Money, BYU. How about that? How about that, man? You're on a roll, man. You're on a roll. You called it. You called the Baylor win. You've called the Oregon win, and they very well could pull off that win over Oregon. They are very vulnerable. Let's just say that. BYU, great win. It was a sloppy game there towards the end. So many, just mistakes by both teams. But ultimately, the difference maker was Jaren Hall. We talked about that in our recap video yesterday. Jaren Hall made the plays when he had to make them and was phenomenal in that game against a very, very good Baylor defense. So congratulations, Cash Money, on that BYU win. Well-deserved. And we are, that was one of the best games of the day. That was a game that people weren't talking about nearly enough. I felt like a top 25 matchup. I don't think people were talking about it because maybe it wasn't the biggest teams in the world. Maybe it was because it was such a late game. I don't know. But it ended up being a phenomenal game. And these are 2 teams that by the end of the year, I could easily see both finishing in the top 10. Very, very possible because that's how good I think both these teams are. So congratulations to Cash Money for that win. Good morning, F123. Penn State is looking very good this year. Very good this year. Big game against Auburn, though, this Saturday. We'll talk more on that a little bit today probably, but also later in the week. Roman, we'll talk about the big upset from Marshall here in a second. We're going to break down the AP poll. Cruz Madrid, Boomer Sooner, big win. Got a game against Nebraska coming up. Now, many people, I'm just going to say it right now, many people are going to be quick to say Oklahoma will blow out Nebraska. They just fired Scott Frost. They're in shambles. All I'm going to say, and we'll break it down later in the week, but all I will say on that game right now is the fact that typically when a team fires a coach, especially mid-season, that team kind of gets up for that next game. There's a lot of times you see that where sometimes the team, the season's still young. Nebraska could still make a bowl game if they start to turn things around. It's going to take a lot, but they can still do it. They're not going to beat Oklahoma, I don't think. All I'm saying is, though, teams tend to get pretty hyped. It's still at home. Nebraska's fan base is still very, very loyal and passionate. And a lot of times these players and these teams wake up once their coaches get fired. Prime example I'll give you was last year, and Scott won't like this, but TCU. TCU gets rid of Gary Patterson late in the year. And the very next week, they beat who? Baylor, who, in doing so, missed out on the college football playoff. That 2-point loss to TCU kept Baylor from the college football playoff. So it can happen. Don't rule anything out. That would be just like Nebraska, wouldn't it? To suck under Scott Frost for so long, he gets fired in the first game, they come out and beat a top 10 team. that would be just like them. But yes, don't sleep on that. We'll talk more on that later. Mr. Bloodline from Atkins, Arkansas. I love it. Atkins, Arkansas. I appreciate you, my man. Thank you for all the support. Hey, fellow Arkansan right here too. So I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Now I was actually, I think, driving through Atkins just the other day. So that is very, very cool. So good to see you. Glad you're here this morning. Yes, Marshall beat Notre Dame. App State beat Texas A&M. Wild college football weekend. And we're about to talk more about that in a second. Matthew Hazelhorse, good morning, man. Glad you could be here. Kansas State, Missouri got smoked. And I can't say I'm surprised in the slightest, man. You guys 100%. Kansas State, they were the better team. I never for a second thought Missouri was going to win that game. I didn't know how close it would be. I didn't know if the Tigers could hang. But I never thought Missouri was going to go into Manhattan and win that game. So Missouri, we've been telling you they were going to struggle this year. We knew they were going to struggle and not be anything special. And we said Kansas State could be that Big 12 dark horse. So Matthew, stay tuned. Will Kansas State be ranked in our top 25 coming out at 1 o'clock this afternoon? Stay tuned. You'll find out. But big win, 40-12 over an SEC team, former Big 12 rival. Talk about making a statement. So congrats on that huge win on Saturday. That they put on a clinic, and I love getting to see it. And I appreciate you in that super chat, man, very, very much. Thank you. Again, everybody, thank you all so much for that. I'll actually take that to plug this real quick before we dive into the poll. Guys, you've probably seen it. I don't know if you have, but we hit 10,000 subscribers. 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Talk about crazy, right? Talk about a milestone. So we are ecstatic about that and grateful for that. So tomorrow night, put it on your calendars. A lot of you guys are regulars and we appreciate you. Put it on your calendars. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m., because Tuesday and Wednesday we do those nightly live streams, we are going to have a 10,000 subscriber celebration. So we'll be here, just kind of recapping, obviously the journey to 10,000. We'll talk plenty of ball. We're going to take your questions. We're going to take your comments. We're going to talk plenty of football. But we're going to come here just as a nation, as that GE family, right? We're going to celebrate this milestone that you guys helped us reach. Because we don't have those type of numbers. We don't get to that point without you. So show up tomorrow night. Show up, show out. 10,000 subscriber celebration tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time. We want you there because you guys helped build this. So be there, show up, show out. Let's come out, have some fun, some great discussion, and celebrate this milestone. And look forward to the next 10,000. That's what we're really excited to do. So, wanted to put that plug out there. We'll promote it in the videos coming up. We're gonna put a written post, on YouTube and stuff like that. But 7 p.m. tomorrow night, big time celebration right here on the channel. So do not miss out on that. All right, let's see. We will get to the rest of your questions and comments here shortly. I promise you, we always do. But let's go ahead and talk about. Let's jump into the AP poll, because what that's going to do is that's going to end up kind of transitioning into a lot of what you guys are talking about. Cash money. Georgia Southern beat Nebraska. So big day for the Sun Belt, right? Georgia Southern, App State, Marshall, all from the Sun Belt, all beating Power 5 teams on the road. Good one. I think they said that those three teams combined were paid over $4 million. $4 million combined to come play those teams, and they walked away and won. How about that? Isn't that crazy? You get paid. That's what I love about these guys. That's what I love about college football, right? You pay these teams to come play you. Hey, here's $1 million. Come to Nebraska. We're gonna get an easy win, but we're gonna pay you $1 million. And they go, okay, fine. We're not just gonna roll over because you're paying us. We're still gonna try. So that these teams get to walk. They get to walk away with the money. They get the money and they get a win and they get to embarrass the team. It's amazing. It's insane. So unbelievable weekend for the Sun Belt. Obviously, we saw the Baylor BYU game, another top 10 team losing. Wisconsin fell to Washington State. That was a big time upset. The Badgers over 17-point favorites in that game. So could the Cougars possibly be for real with Cameron Ward? I don't know, but winning in Madison, not an easy thing to do. Florida obviously fell to Kentucky. And let's go ahead and just jump into it, right? And we'll come back. I promise. We're going to hit all the comments. So there's your AP poll for week 3, okay? There it is. And again, these are not our rankings. Our rankings come out at 1 o'clock today, and they will look very, very different from this. I can promise you that, because we don't really agree with all. There are a couple we do agree with. a couple spots that we actually agree with. And I'll tell you right now, I actually do think that the top 6 is pretty undisputed. I think the top 6 is fine because you look. I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to this weekend, but there's looking at the top 10 teams from week 2. I really felt that there was only one top 10 team that played their full potential. One top 10 team that truly looked like a top 10 team, and that was Georgia. That was the Bulldogs. And yes, they played Samford, so it wasn't like they were playing some quality opponent. But obviously, look at how they played against Oregon. You look at how they didn't have a letdown against Samford the week after. Didn't struggle. Didn't do anything like that. Georgia, I think, deserves that number 1 spot over an Alabama team that barely beat Texas. Barely was able to escape Texas last week. Winning by 1. And that's really a game, guys, that Alabama should have lost. Just again, to recap that. Come back to our camera here. We'll come back to our rankings. But to recap that for Alabama, they committed the most penalties ever under Nick Saban. Most penalties ever under Nick Saban. I think it was like 15 penalties for over 100 yards. You factor in that Texas missed that chip shot field goal at the end of the first half, like 20 yards. They make that, they win the game. You factor in that, yes, Quinn Ewers got hurt. So if he plays the entire game, Texas was very aggressive with him, especially through the air. I think they kind of scaled back a little bit with Hudson Card. So maybe if he doesn't get hurt, they win the game. You factor in that safety that Texas probably should have had in the third quarter. And I can't remember exactly how it went down. They sacked Bryce Young in the end zone. He threw it out the back of the end zone, side of the end zone, really. And what do they call it? Roughing the passer or unnecessary roughness or something like that. It bailed Alabama out. They still punted the ball away. But if that ends up being a safety, like it should have been, Texas goes up 12-10 and gets the ball. 12-10 and gets the ball. So a touchdown there puts them up 19-10, 20-10 if they go for it, and almost puts the game out of reach because their defense was phenomenal. Factor in the missed sack that Texas had. That last drive, Bryce Young evading pressure, ducks, evades the sack. If he gets sacked there, Alabama probably... So many chances that Texas had to win the game and couldn't come through. Does Alabama still deserve a top 5 spot? Yes. Do they deserve the number 1 spot? No. They didn't look like it. They did not look like the number 1 team in the country. Will they be better? Yes. Keep in mind, Alabama's next 2 games were against ULM and Vanderbilt. So you just prayers up for the Warhawks of the Sun Belt. Don't think we're going to see another big-time Sun Belt upset from them. And then obviously Vanderbilt. So their next 2 games should be easy wins to just kind of coast, correct things. And then obviously they play Arkansas on October 1st. And that will be the true test. And a game that, many people thought Arkansas maybe could upset Alabama this year. And I think a lot of Razorback fans are feeling more confident about that after seeing Alabama this last weekend. We got Georgia at 1. They deserve that. Alabama deserves a drop. Ohio State, they beat Arkansas State by 35. Great, but they didn't even cover that game. I look at Ohio State. Their offense was fine, but the fact that winning by 35 is nothing to frown about. But, allowing 12 points to ASU, I think, was a bit of a surprise and disappointing because Arkansas State moved the ball pretty well against Ohio State, all things considered. They never got in the end zone, 4 field goals. But Ohio State, I think many people thought they'd look a little bit better. I think, honestly, 45-12, it was a more impressive showing for Arkansas State than it was from Ohio State, that's the best way to put it. Still a top 5 team. Michigan deserves to move up, though, obviously. They've crushed Colorado State. They've crushed Hawaii. No quality wins necessarily, but they've looked good. And J.J. McCarthy, for sure, winning that starting job over Cade McNamara. Jim Harbaugh was going to kind of do quarterback by committee. McNamara gets to start in week 1. McCarthy gets it in week 2. We'll decide on the starter by week 3. Well, McCarthy blew it out of the water against Hawaii, and then when McNamara got in there for a little bit, he threw another interception. So I think that pretty much sealed his fate with that pick. Clemson at 5. Okay. Oklahoma at 6. Okay. Both teams getting wins over some cheap opponents. Furman and who did Oklahoma play like? Kent State. So top 6, fine. I'm actually okay with Oklahoma State at 8. USC at 7. Again, our rankings come out later. Still think USC is overrated. Still think USC is ranked way too high. They go from 4-8 to a top 10 team in the span of 2 weeks, really, when you look at this year. And your 2 wins are over Rice and a Stanford team who also went like 4-8 last year. Just don't think you're top 7 material. Don't really feel that's the case. I think they should be a little bit lower right there until they beat someone with substance, someone quality. But USC, regardless, at 7. Oklahoma State at 8, I'm okay with. Kentucky at 9 and Arkansas at 10. Arkansas, I do believe, is a top 10 team. I do agree with that. Whether you want to rank them, 10th or 9th or maybe 8th. I don't think they're any better than 8th right now. I don't think Kentucky's top 10 material. I think that's kind of ridiculous. And we'll come back to our camera here for a second. I think that's kind of crazy, guys. The fact that Kentucky is in the top 10 is wild to me. And you know why they are? Is because they were, 20th last week? So they moved up 11 spots. Let's get 11 spots for beating Florida on the road. That's a good win. Florida was 12th last week, though, right? Most of us agreed here on the channel that Florida was overrated when it came to the rankings. You beat Utah and you go from like 38th to 12th, so you move up 26 spots. It just doesn't make any sense. But the AP poll, did it. And so they weigh that Kentucky went a little bit stronger. They go, they beat the 12th ranked team in the country by 10 on the road. That's impressive. But really, Florida in reality was not the 12th best team in the country. They maybe were like 25th, which is what we had them at going into week 2. Florida was 25. So if you based it on our rankings, the 20th best team in the country in Kentucky beat the 25 ranked team in the country on the road by 10. Still a good win, still worthy of Kentucky moving up in the rankings, but 11 spots? No, don't think so. So I think that's a little bit high for Kentucky, but the Wildcats should be undefeated before their big test against Ole Miss on October 1st as well. So that wraps up your top 10. Michigan State at 11 is fine. BYU at 12, I think, is remotely acceptable, moving up from 21st to 12th after the win over Baylor. I do think the drop for Baylor is kind of interesting to me. I think dropping Baylor 8 spots is a little much. Why? Why drop them 8 spots? You saw that game. We saw that game. And that's what I start to question sometimes is does the AP poll ever, do the Associated Press, do they ever watch the games in detail? Do they actually watch what happens? Or do they just look at the score and go, they won. Okay, let's move them up 25 spots. What do they look at? Because my thing is Baylor is a top 10 team. They went on the road at night to Provo. That's a tough place to play. They looked good. They really did. Struggled at times, sure, but they looked pretty solid. Baylor had their opportunities to win. So you lose in double overtime, 26-20 in double overtime to BYU at their house, and you drop me 8 spots. I disagree with that. I think that's a little too harsh. I think, like I said, the Bears are still way too good. You look at the game and you realize Baylor easily could have won that game, like we just mentioned. You missed the extra point. You missed the field goal in overtime. That team was very, very good and had their opportunities. So I don't understand that, why you drop them 8 spots. That to me seems really hard. But they're basically saying Baylor's overrated. We had them as a top 10 team, but one loss to a top 25 team on the road in double overtime, and we're gonna tank you. How does that make sense? I agree with BYU being ranked above them. No issue with that. But to go from 9th to 17th, almost dropping from the top 10 down to the bottom 20 area, no, that's ridiculous. Before we jump back in there, want to give a big shout out to the Hog fan in France. I love that. Holy cow. Awesome. He is in France, but he always watches the videos. Woo Pig all the way from France. Now that is freaking awesome. That's what I love about our job here. That's so cool, man. So Hog fan and fans, congrats on the win against South Carolina. Arkansas, top 10 team. And again, we'll have our rankings out for that in a couple hours. But man, that's so cool. We've got guys that are now in France, and I know we have a guy in Canada, Australia. I know we got a guy way out there, but that's cool. So I appreciate you and all your support. It's pretty dang awesome. We get people from other countries in here. I love getting people from schools and obviously all 50 states. We've got people watching from all 50 states, but overseas, that's even cooler. So thank you for all your support, my man. We appreciate you. Congrats on the Hogs, and they're looking really dang good. And I think they have a really good chance to start 4-0 before they take on Alabama on October 1st. So we're really excited to watch them and to keep analyzing them. But thank you again for all your support, guys. I appreciate that. We will be getting to all the chats here in a little bit. Don't worry. Again, we're going to come back and address all the comments and things like that. I just want to finish up on the AP poll, which again kind of groups in a cluster, kind of connects with our week 2 recap. Kind of we're touching on a lot of the games that happened from week 2. So back to the AP poll. We went through Michigan State. We went through BYU. Miami, you beat Southern Miss. Okay, 13th, whatever. Utah, you beat. I still think Utah is closer to a top 10 team than a top 15. I think 14th is still a little bit low for them. I think again they weighed their loss to Florida a little too heavily, just like they weighed Florida's win over Utah a little too heavily. Again, you drop. Let's think about this. Florida loses at home by 10 to Kentucky, who is ranked 8 spots lower than them, and Florida only dropped 6. Baylor loses on the road in double overtime to the 21st ranked team in the country, and they drop 8. So again, there's you got to look at some logic there. And Florida, guys, sticking on that, they looked horrible. I mean, let me talk about that. I don't want to get too deep into it, but here's the thing. We said in our Kentucky-Florida preview video, we said we want to see more from Anthony Richardson. We said the game's going to be close. They're going to keep it close. Kentucky would. But Anthony Richardson, as good as he is dangerous on the ground. But we think Mark Stoops is probably going to find a way to shut that down, right? He'll probably find a way to contain Anthony Richardson, slow down that height. So he's got to win the game through the air. So everybody's like, hey, he's a Heisman candidate. Put him in the top 5 of the Heisman after week 1. One good game over Utah. And what did he do through the air? Completed just 40% of his passes and threw 2 picks and no touchdowns. Didn't even eclipse 200 yards. Had 4 rushing yards on the day. He looked horrible. And so I don't know if that's a testament to how maybe bad Utah's defense was. I don't know if it was a testament to how good Kentucky's defense was, a mixture of both. But Anthony Richardson could not deliver through the air. And that pick 6 he threw 2 picks. One of them was a pick 6. Ended up being the difference maker. Gave Kentucky the lead back, gave them all the momentum, and they shut out Florida in the second half. If you're as good as you say you are, if you're a true Heisman candidate, if you're one of the best players in the country, don't you think as quarterback of the team you could at least get yourself 3 points in the whole second half? And they couldn't do it. So I just still think Florida was wildly and grossly overrated. And I'll give you all just a little taste of our top 25. Florida's not even ranked. Because if you remember last year, we had Florida at 25th. We weren't buying into the hype. We gave them credit for the win, but did not think they deserved to be ranked higher than that. They lose to Kentucky. Now they're back out where they belong for now. So very, very questionable there. So again, going through that, we kind of broke down Utah and Florida. We've talked about Baylor. Tennessee moving up to 15th after their win over Pittsburgh. That was a big-time win. This was an interesting one to me, too, because Tennessee was 24th, so they moved up 9 spots. 9 spots after their win over Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was 17th. They moved down 6 after their loss. And again, this is another one of those games where I feel like the poll and the committee and the rankers, they've not taken everything into account. Does Tennessee deserve to be ranked higher than Pittsburgh? Yes. They won head-to-head, fair and square, on the road. Tough thing to do. But if you watch that game in its entirety, you have to take a couple factors into play. Because here's the thing. Tennessee was down 17-7. Then they were winning 24-17 at halftime. Great comeback, great effort. But then Pittsburgh, who was playing pretty good ball, lost Keaton Slovis for the entire second half. Their backup quarterback, Nick Patty, got hurt. They didn't take him out. Practically played the majority of the second half on like one leg. Still delivered. Still got the game-tying touchdown there. Got to send the game to overtime. But if you factor everything in there, the injuries, the missed opportunities, things like that. And it's, again, a shoulda, woulda, coulda type of deal. But Pittsburgh, if Keaton Slovis doesn't get hurt, probably wins that game if their defense plays just like they did. What did they have in the second half? They had like a block punt, 2 fumble recoveries, a pick, something like that. I mean, their defense was playing lights out in the second half because they had to, because their offense wasn't really moving the ball very well with Patty in there. Not because, first off, it's your backup, you're going to struggle, and he was hurt. If Keaton Slovis stays healthy, Pittsburgh probably wins that game. He delivers on some of the throws that Patty was unable to make. They capitalize more often than Patty did. So, you keep that in mind, and I think, Pittsburgh maybe dropped a little bit too far. 6 spots down to almost outside the top 25 feels a little harsh to me. And Talk is Pitt says, tough loss for Pittsburgh. Tennessee deserves to win. Now we may be down 2 quarterbacks for our next game, along with our starting center. We will have to rely on freshman Nate Yarnell, who is 6'6". So yes, you hope that Slovis and Patty will make a quick recovery, but there's a chance they might not be around. Luckily, they play Western Michigan this weekend. Not an easy game by any means. Lost to Western Michigan last year, but should be able to take them down. So be interesting to see how that pans out. But again, kind of interesting to think about when it comes to these rankings. So that was that. Again, NC State, Baylor, Florida, we all talked about there. Wake Forest at 19th. Congratulations, and thankfully Sam Hartman returning from his medical condition, played lights out football against Vanderbilt. So not only were we just thrilled to see him back on the field, he played really good football. Vanderbilt still held their own, but would drop like 25 points, which this time last year they would not have come even close to scoring 25 points on an offense like Wake Forest. So give the Commodores a little bit of credit, but Wake Forest, Demon Deacon is still the real deal. I like him above Ole Miss, beat up on a UCA team out of the FCS. Nothing too much to brag about there. They do get a semi-decent test against Georgia Tech on Saturday, but we knew that Ole Miss was not going to be really tested until the back half of their schedule. I'm going to get to Texas in a second. Let's Oregon in the top 25, fine. They dropped them all the way out after week 1. I thought that was ridiculous, so bumping them back in is nice. And obviously, I think the major reason they do that is to make the BYU-Oregon game look a little bit better. Penn State coming in at 22nd, fine with that. Beat Purdue, crushed Ohio. They are worthy of that 22nd spot. And then you got the 2 Texas schools here. And that'll wrap up our AP poll after we finish this, and we'll come back to the chat. You got the 2 Texas schools in there, A&M at 24th and Texas at 21st, and that is just absolutely ridiculous, both of them. I mean, what are we doing here, guys? So first off, what we did is we rewarded Texas for losing. Let's think about that. It's, hey, you played Alabama really, really, really close. And many people, including us, think you should have won that game. If your quarterback, and what it is, it's got to say they have inconsistencies. I think the AP poll did take all the factors into consideration for Texas. But they won't take those factors into consideration for teams like Pittsburgh and Baylor and guys like that. But if you're a big-time name brand, we'll cut you some slack and help you out. We moved a team that was unranked last week. You were unranked. They lost, and we moved them up not just barely into the top 25, but fully into the top 25 over Penn State, who is 2-0, over Pittsburgh, whose lone loss is to a top 15 team. In Texas, yes, their lone loss is to Alabama, but still. Oregon and Texas A&M, and you're only 1 spot behind Ole Miss, who's 2-0. I mean, let's think about it. So it wasn't like Texas barely moved into 25th. They moved all the way to 21st because they lost. And I, for one, I'm not one to reward losing. I mean, yes, great game, great effort. Texas may have improved, whatever, good for them. But you still lost. Still lost the game, and you did have your chances. If you get Bryce Young down, you win the game. You make the chip shot field goal, you win the game. You don't drop some easy interceptions, you win the game. I mean, so many, you don't get held to field goals. You actually find a way to get in the end zone, you win the game. So, those are all things that were controllable. The Quinn Ewers thing, not controllable. All the other things we just mentioned, they were. So we moved a team in Texas from unranked to 21st because they lost by 1 to the number 1 team in the country. Do you think that the AP poll would have done that for anybody else? No. Do you think that if anybody else had lost to Texas, to Alabama by 1 point, they would have moved them into the rankings, assuming they were on the outside looking in? Do you think that if there was a top 15 team that fell to Alabama by 1 point, do you think they would stay the same, move up, or drop 7 spots? They probably would drop 7 spots. A 1 point loss to Alabama will move you from 15th to 22nd. Interesting how that works, isn't it? Also interesting how Texas A&M can lose to Appalachian State, 6th in the nation, and still remain ranked at 24th. And as Scott says, fully agree, the only reason why Texas A&M is ranked is to make that Miami game look a lot better. So once again, that just comes to show the Associated Press does not rank teams based on who truly deserves to be ranked. They don't rank teams truly based on performances and and obviously all the factors that go into a game, they rank it based on eye candy, what looks good. And that game is past 8 o'clock next Saturday night. So it's a late night game in College Station, and having two teams with two numbers by their names makes that game look bigger and better than it really is going to be. That is why they kept Texas A&M ranked. That's why they did it. Anybody else falls to Appalachian State or Marshall or Georgia Southern or something like that, and they drop out of the rankings. Notre Dame fell out of the rankings, and rightfully so. They're 0-2. But Texas A&M's only win was against Sam Houston. It's not like they beat some big dog, right? Any other team is a top 10 team. If it had Utah lost to App State, they're out. Let me look at this. If Utah falls to App State, they're out of the top 25. Oklahoma State, they're out of the top 25. I don't know if I can say the same about Bama or Georgia. Probably not. They'd all stay in there. Kentucky, if they were to lose, they'd be out. Arkansas, they'd be out. So really, the only teams that were in the top 25 that are safe from losing to an FCS or something about program, maybe your top 4, maybe, probably your top 4. But even then, that's slightly wrong, So A&M still getting a lot of love from the press, pretty ridiculous. Look, if you beat Miami, great. My thing is, they deserve to drop out of the rankings, and if you beat Miami, you can jump right back in. You can rejoin the party. Accidents happen, upsets happen. It's college football, baby. It's what happens. But to almost reward, you're rewarding Texas for losing, and to reward Texas A&M and go, it's okay. Like, you lost to Appalachian State. You're not nearly as good as you're supposed to be. We all know you're extremely overrated, but we're going to still give you a national ranking because you're playing a big team in Miami, and we want that game to look better and more exciting than maybe it really is going to be. We're going to give you 24th. Unbelievable. It's very shocking and wrong. But there you go. There's the Associated Press. So, having said all of that, we're going to come back to your questions. We're going to get back to your chats. We're excited to do all of that. And as I'm looking through our Discord server, getting a bunch of alerts, we have another user. Another user. CD Russ 15. I love it. Sometimes I don't know everybody's name. Everybody has different usernames, but very happy to have them in the Discord server. So yeah, let's hit all the chats. Let's hit all the questions. Before we do that, though, guys, I do want to thank all of you again for joining us this morning. Sometimes these 8 a.m. live streams, they can be hit or miss. It's early. We're all tired getting back up for school or for work or whatever you're doing. 8 a.m. period on a Monday. Everybody hates Mondays. It can be rough. But we're super pumped you guys could join us again. We thank you all so much for your support, whether you're watching now, whether you're watching later in the day. Treat it like a podcast even. We love being able to have this discussion with all of you. I can't thank you enough for all your support. Again, 10,000 subscribers. It does not happen without you. Does not happen without you guys. And we are celebrating big tomorrow night right here on the channel, 7 p.m. Central Time. We will have that 10,000 subscriber live stream. So bring your questions, bring your comments, bring some memories, and let's have some fun. Let's generally have some fun. But we appreciate all of you guys and all of your help and all of your support. So let's catch up a little bit. Let's go back to the chat and see. George Stice, he might be gone now. I know he doesn't get to stay for very long most of the time. But George Stice, one of our moderators, one of the long-term viewers here at the GE Nation. We appreciate him. Does the win say more about Alabama or Texas? Can Texas continue to have success without Quinn Ewers? Yes, they can continue to have success, especially if their defense plays like they did against Alabama. One other thing you have to keep in mind with Texas, too, is I want to make sure we don't overreact too much. Texas benefited a lot from those Alabama penalties. They got some points off of those penalties. Some drives stayed alive because of some of those penalties, which even, one thing that you got to look at in a close game like that, maybe you don't get points off of extended drives, but they waste more time. So Texas A&M, or Texas, being able to utilize more of the clock because of those extended drives is beneficial. It's a huge difference maker when it's all said and done there. So I think it says more, honestly, about Alabama. I think it shows they are vulnerable. I think we saw some questions in their wide receiver core. No really big-time playmaker stepping up like you had last year. Also shows a lot of questions about discipline, but that is something that Nick Saban is going to fix very, very quickly. Again, next 2 weeks, Alabama plays ULM and Vanderbilt, games that they can practically sleepwalk through. That's going to be a great opportunity for these teams to build more chemistry with their wide receivers, fix the issues with the penalties and the defense, and be ready to go for the bulk of SEC play. So I think that's kind of what it says there. Roman Whitfield, do I think Josh Heupel can win the SEC in 2024? Man, that's 2 years out. I have no idea. If he keeps recruiting and building Tennessee the way he is, absolutely they'll be in contention. But that is we're not even talking next year, man. That's 2 years. I have no clue. Who knows where the state of the SEC will be at that point. Scotty says the only 2 losses he could see for BYU were Arkansas and Boise State. Boise State has quite a bit of success against BYU. They did. They beat them last year. But again, BYU, as Cash Money would love to say, man, looking at it, the schedule to me just keeps getting more favorable. I mean, Notre Dame not looking as good as we thought they'd be. Still a solid team. Upsets happen, but the games in Vegas, they might have some stuff taken out of them. So BYU can beat Notre Dame. BYU can beat Oregon and Eugene this week, no doubt about it. Could be very vulnerable there. So, you do that. Arkansas has to come to Provo. I know they play Boise State. I know they play Stanford. I know they play good East Carolina teams. The schedule's not easy, but those big games that we were talking about that would be huge for their resume are all winnable. And if they beat if they beat Oregon this Saturday, watch out. The Cougars will be a top 10 team if they aren't already for some of you. And, if they beat Arkansas in mid-October and the Razorbacks are a top 15 team at that time, depending on how they're faring, BYU will have wins over Oregon on the road. They'd have a win over Baylor. They'd have a win over Arkansas. They'd have possibly a win over Notre Dame. We've talked about this on every live stream, but the Cougars, guys, could, by season's end, have a resume worthy of the committee taking a look at if they go undefeated. That's a very tall task, but if BYU runs the table, it would be insane for the committee to go, yeah, but you're an independent, you're BYU, and your strength schedule is just not there. Really? Because my only argument with that is, what about Notre Dame? Notre Dame's independent. They typically don't have that great of a strength of schedule. They maybe have 2 or 3 games in their schedule every year that are big time games. They might play a team like Clemson. They might play a team like USC. But most of the time they beat up on some lesser ACC. Georgia Tech. They play Georgia Tech. They beat Syracuse. They beat Navy. Beat some crap teams, right? And yet they're typically in the playoff hunt. So if BYU strolls up, late November, December, goes, hey, slaps it down, goes, look, we got to win over Baylor. Guess what? They're playing for a Big 12 championship. We got to win over Arkansas. Guess what? They've won 9 games and have a couple of big quality victories in there too. We've got to win over Oregon, who could be playing for a Pac-12 championship or, win 8 or 9 games. At Oregon, we should add. Oh, yeah, we've also got to win against Notre Dame. Yes, they lost to Marshall, but maybe they've turned things around and finished the year with 8, 9 wins, finished in the top 25. We've got to win over Boise State, who could be playing for a Mountain West championship game. And again, the committee wants to weigh conference titles so heavily. You want to talk about that? Even if they haven't won a conference title by that point, I think it should be considered, oh, hey, Boise State, they made the Mountain West championship. Oh, Oregon, they made the Pac-12 championship. You have to be good enough to get there. They might not win it, but to go like, hey, you met the Pac-12 runner-up, you beat the Mountain West runner-up, the SEC, whatever it is, and then maybe a couple champions in there. BYU, bottom line, guys, is going to have a resume worthy of the committee taking a look at, and to me, it's going to be no different than that of Notre Dame. In years past, Notre Dame has had a few quality wins every year, but typically nothing that blows them out of the water. BYU would have multiple on their resume if, again, they go undefeated, which would include wins against Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, Arkansas, Boise State, Stanford, and anybody else that could kind of emerge, maybe be a fringe top 25 team. Just saying. Watch out. I know Cash Money probably loves to hear it. Let's see. Mr. Bloodline, this is a good question. Why are these ADs picking decent non-conference teams to play as warm-up games? Example, Arkansas picked Cincinnati and BYU as non-conference. What are they smoking? Arkansas should be playing Rice and UCA. Well, that's a really good question. A couple of things on that, if you're still here, Mr. Bloodline, all the way from Atkins. I love it. What they do, 2 things that I'll argue with that. Schedules are made so far in advance. They're made so far in advance. So I don't know when Arkansas scheduled let's just focus on Cincinnati. I don't know when they scheduled Cincinnati, but let's say it was like 2015. Cincinnati wasn't any good. So at the time, Arkansas's mediocre 2015 with Brett Bielema. Cincinnati, they're nothing. The first couple of years in the look fickle, they were going 4-8. So it's like, if we would have played next year at that time, Arkansas beat Cincinnati and they beat them this year. But it's like, but 7-8 years from now, no one knows what's going to look like. That's why it's really funny when you get these big marquee matchups. It's, Alabama's going to play Ohio State in 10 years in Tuscaloosa. Well, a lot can happen in 10 years. What if, by that point, you would think Nick Saban's going to be retired. So what if Alabama falls off? What if Ohio State struggles? Or Arkansas. We're going to play BYU. Well, how good's Arkansas going to be? How good is BYU going to be? How good? You don't know how good these teams are going to be so far in advance. So it's not like in 2015 they could go, oh, crap, in 2022, Cincinnati is going to be coming off a playoff appearance and BYU is going to be a top 15 caliber team. Yikes. You don't know that. But you do, every Power 5 team is required to play another Power 5 team or an independent in the non-conference. That is a rule now. So I'm pretty sure that's a rule. So that, or at least it is within the SEC. So that's why you're seeing those type of games there. They're doing that to improve strength of schedule. They're doing that to, make sure that teams don't just schedule, 2 or 3 FCS teams or, 2 or 3 of the worst teams in the Sun Belt plus an FCS team. So boom, you're 4-0 heading into conference play. They want to make sure that we're getting more parity and that we're getting, some quality games on everybody's resume. It just make it a little bit tougher for everybody else. I mean, Missouri played Kansas State. I'm focusing on SEC right now. That's a Big 12 team, so a Power 5 team. Arkansas got Cincinnati, which is a group of 5, so it doesn't really count. But BYU, that counts because they're independent. Last year, Arkansas played Texas. There it is, Power 5. Alabama just played Texas. Boom, Power 5. Ole Miss plays Georgia Tech. Power 5. Mississippi State played Arizona. Power 5. And I'm not going to go through every team here, but Georgia, Oregon, Florida, Utah, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Vanderbilt, Wake Forest. It's kind of fun, actually. But, you get what I'm saying? These teams are playing teams within another Power 5 conference. They're playing them within an independent, and they've got to do that based on the rules. So I agree. I do like in-state rivalries, Mr. Bloodline. I do think Arkansas. A lot of people say keep the money in the state. LSU, Louisiana as a whole, they do a really good job of that. Louisiana, typically LSU, they've played Louisiana Tech. They've played Louisiana Lafayette. They played them. They'll play Southeast Louisiana. They play teams within the state because they're paying that money, but at least you're keeping it in the state. Arkansas, for the longest time, they haven't done that. They would refuse to play Arkansas State, although they are going to finally play each other in 2025. They're too not scared, but for some reason don't want to play UCA. They don't want to play. They played UAPB last year. I'll give them that. They played Arkansas Pine Bluff, which kept some money in the state. But I think most states should do that. If you're gonna schedule a crap team, an easy win against an FCS team or a group of 5 team, why not schedule that team within your own state? Not only because it keeps the money in the state if you're going to pay that school, but also it increases a rivalry. What if it's an old-time rivalry game? Even if it's not, you've got people from talk about ticket sales. If, for example, and then I'll drop this and keep going through the chat. For example, the Arkansas State game. That is a game that many fans across the board have been dying to see for years. When will Arkansas finally play Arkansas State? And to be honest with you, Frank Broyles, the former Arkansas athletic director, was too scared to ever do it. So Hunter Yurachek comes in after Jeff Long, because Jeff Long was just Frank Broyles' puppet. So Hunter Yurachek comes in, bucks the system, makes it happen. Why is that going to be such a big deal? Will Arkansas probably win that game? Yeah, although we don't know what it's going to be like in 2025. We have no idea. But that's exciting because you're bringing all these fans from every corner of the state of Arkansas to Central Arkansas. They're playing the game in Little Rock, and people want to watch that game. They want to support their teams. It kind of unites the state in a way. Just like I think, playing a game, with teams within Louisiana. LSU typically going to beat Louisiana Tech, going to beat Louisiana, but you're going to get quite a bit of fans there. You're going to get some good in-state TV ratings. It's a good opportunity to play teams within your state, unite the state, get a little rivalry going between fan bases, and that's what I like about it. So more people should do it. They don't, and I get it. It's a business. You need to get a win. At the end of the day, you're going to schedule a team that you feel confident you can beat. But that's a great question and great point, Mr. Bloodline. I spent a lot of time on that, but I love that comment. Matthew Hazelhorst, the SEC Bermuda Triangle. One team or two get ridiculously overhyped rankings. Another SEC team beats them. Now both are higher ranked teams for other SEC teams to have good wins. And you're exactly right. It's exactly how it is. It's a very political thing. A very political thing. Let's see here. Yeah, Utah State, the reigning champs of the Mountain West, lost to Weber State by 28. What is that? Excuse me. What is that? 28 points to Weber State out of the FCS. That's pretty wild. And again, that's a game that's not getting talked about nearly enough. But Utah State guys, they look like they were going to struggle a little bit, right? They struggled against UConn in week 0, battled back, won the game, but struggled there, got crushed against Alabama. Okay, no big deal. And then Weber State, maybe this Blake Anderson team isn't as good as people thought. I thought they were going to be solid again, but they did lose a lot of production from last year. We knew this was going to be the same 11-win team. I think the Weber State games definitely solidifies that. Stephen Cuffey, good to see you. Appreciate you and all your support, man. Nice to see you this morning. Hog fan in France. Again, I appreciate all your support all the way from France. I love it. That's so freaking cool. And so I appreciate you and your support. And his comment on Arkansas here. He loves KJ Jefferson, but he's afraid that a team will expose his passing ability. Hardly ever see him stretch the middle of the field. Do I think he's afraid to throw in traffic? I think it is. That's a really good question and good analysis. I'm actually watching Arkansas. I tend to get very frustrated with Kendall Briles and his play calling. I think a lot of times it is conservative. And I don't know what they're telling KJ in practice. I look at him, man, and he's got a cannon for an arm. And we've got some great wide receivers, Jaden Hazelwood's there, and Warren Thompson's there, and Matt Landers is showing up. And, I get there's something to be said for going up tempo and wanting to be balanced and things like that. And Briles is trying to utilize the speed that Arkansas has to, quick little screen passes, dump passes over the middle and do that. But most of the time when KJ goes deep, it works. When he stretches the field, it works. We don't really see him take many shots. And by shots, I even mean passes, 10 yards down the field. Rarely does he take those. And I don't think that's more of him. I think part of it's a mental thing with him. He doesn't want to turn the ball over. They're stressing the importance of ball security, and I get that. But he only threw 4 interceptions last year. He makes good decisions. And I think we've got to open up the pass a little bit more. Arkansas's got to open up the pass a little bit more. Because one thing that I haven't enjoyed seeing from Arkansas is the fact that KJ takes a lot of hits. He's averaging, 15, 20 rushes per game, and my fear for Arkansas is he's going to get hurt one of these days. Knock on wood that he does not, but, you run your quarterback that often, something dangerous could happen. So I think that's a mixture of both. I think a mixture of it is Kendall Briles limiting his passing ability. I don't know if they're saving that for SEC play or what. We saw KJ last year against Texas A&M do extremely well before he got hurt a little bit in that game. But had some great passes to Traylon Burks, that 85-yarder opened up the scoring. And that showcased his deep ball, his accuracy, and everything like that. So maybe they're saving some. I don't think you'll see much of it this week against Missouri State either. But I do think he's a little bit afraid to throw into traffic. I think he's a little bit afraid to take shots down the field. Probably from a standpoint of just fearing that the ball's going to get turned over, or for Kendall Briles, it slows down the tempo. You take a big shot downfield and it's incomplete, well, now you can't go fast anymore. And that's kind of the deal with Arkansas is it's, hey, let's go short, let's go fast. We're going to throw a bubble screen. We got 5 yards. We can be back up at the line of scrimmage in 5 seconds, being ready to run another play. Versus, we're going to take a shot downfield. It falls incomplete. Now we got to jog back, slow down, get reset, and it screws up the tempo. So I think it's a mixture of both play calling and KJ. But honestly, I would lean more towards it being Kendall Briles and his play calling. Great question, though. Great question. Glad you're able to watch the Hogs in France, too. I've always wondered that. If I was ever, living abroad for whatever reason in France, England, I'm dying one day, hopefully, to get to Australia. That would be that's up on my bucket list. But, if I'm living there in the middle of college football season, how do I do it? And I don't even know the time difference, but, Arkansas, or Baylor, or the biggest game of the week, it comes on at 2:30. what time is it in France or Australia? I don't know. I really don't know the time difference. But am I getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to start watching the game? Not to watch game day. Am I watching the game at 6 a.m.? Am I watching it at 2 in the morning? I don't know how that works, but I've always wondered how well I would react to that. We've got it good here in the United States when it comes to time slots, right? We can play. Oh man, I live on the East Coast and it's 2:30 in the morning, and the West Coast game isn't over yet. Like, man, that's late. Don't get me wrong. If you were on the East Coast watching that Baylor game, it wasn't done until about 2:30 in the morning. But for the most part, we do have it pretty good over here when it comes to timing for watching college football. Let's see. Hog fan in France, yeah, anytime, man. Very happy you could stop by. Happy you could join a live stream just for a little bit. Noon games are at 9 o'clock in France. Wow, that's interesting. That's crazy. 9 o'clock p.m., everybody. So a huge difference. I love that. I can handle that. In fact, start watching a noon game at 9, but then he goes after that, midnight and 3. So I'm sure, man, if Arkansas, for you, if they play afternoon, I know like we're playing Missouri State. I know Arkansas does later in the week, like at 6 o'clock. So like 3 a.m. for you. So wow, your sleep schedule is gonna be so out of whack if you want to be able to watch those games. It's crazy. But Hog fan in France, I appreciate you, man. Very glad you could jump in and catch us for a little bit. I love seeing new comments and getting support from all over the world now. So have a great day. 6 o'clock p.m. Still though. I get what you're saying. That's still crazy. But have a great day, man. I appreciate you and your support. Thanks for stopping by. Feel free to comment anytime, whether it's a live stream or normal videos. We love hearing from you and appreciate all the support. Love it, man. It's so cool. So freaking cool. I want to give a shout out to DM. I don't know if he's still on the chat either, but DM, haven't heard from you in a while, but man, we know you're here. Talking about one of the biggest Gridiron Expert supporters out there. It's this guy right here. It's DM out on the East Coast. So we appreciate you and your support from the likes and the comments, the emails, everything like that. I hope things are going well where you are. And again, really, really appreciate all your support and just being there since day one, man. Being there since the beginning. And as have many of you. So thank you. I'm really happy to see you comment, man. Really, really happy to see you back. Let's see here. Spotlight Productions. Good morning. Happy to see you. Always love getting new people in the chat. It's been a while since I've seen Spotlight. Let's see. Who else? Clement. Good morning as well. Yes, this week we do have some big games. Only 2 ranked versus ranked matchups though, so it's kind of unfortunate. So what we're actually doing, a little sneak peek is we're doing. How we typically do. Rankings come out today for us. Tomorrow we've got the predictions, the 5 underrated games that don't include ranked versus ranked teams. We'll have the 2 ranked versus ranked matchups, so Oregon, BYU, A&M, and Miami, even though that one shouldn't be a ranked versus ranked matchup. And then we'll have one more game on Friday that does not include ranked versus ranked teams, but it's a game that we're excited to talk about. Who knows who it could be? That's going to come out on Friday. Could be Penn State, Auburn. Could be Oklahoma, Nebraska. Could be, I know Fresno State plays USC. That'll be an interesting game late at night on the West Coast. Who knows who it's going to be? So we do have those 2 top 25 matchups, but then Friday we'll have one more to make sure we don't go a single day without posting for you guys, with the exception of Saturday. That's our day off, It's our rest day, and I don't even know if you can call it rest, but one day we want to take off just like everything I want to use. So excited to do that, and excited to keep doing these live streams as well. Last few comments here before I know we wrap things up. I know everybody's going to get ready for start getting on with their day, and we're going to get started with cranking out some videos for you guys. But let's see. Spencer Shane, the key to going on big trips is to go after football season. He's so true. I'm not going to lie to you, Spencer. I planned that, right? I've had people come to me, family members, friends, and go, hey, you want to go to... even for weekend trips, right? It's like, hey, you want to go to, I don't know where, out of state, I'm in Arkansas, right? So, hey, you want to go to Dallas for the weekend? You want to go to, St. Louis for the weekend? New Orleans. Sometimes I go, but there are a lot. I go, hold on, let me check my calendar. By calendar, I mean, let me take a look at who's playing this Saturday. What games could I possibly be missing on Saturday if I go on this trip, for a weekend? Am I going to miss some big marquee matchups, or was it kind of a quote-unquote slow week? Problem is, with college football, you never know. You never know. I thought week 2 was going to be a pretty slow week. A couple big-time matchups, sure, but I was like, for the most part, things are going to go pretty smoothly. Then App State and Marshall and Georgia Southern and Texas and guys like that decided to say, hey, you know what? We took a bunch of crack this weekend, and we're going to throw everything off for college football. And so I'm very glad that I didn't miss any of that and go anywhere. But so true. You want to plan a big trip? We'll plan a big trip. You do it after football season. You want to plan a wedding? You want to get married? You don't get married between September and December, I can tell you that. You wait until, the months like January and August. That's when you go get married and have a wedding. And that goes, for everybody. I mean, personally, no harm if you do get married in the fall. For most, I'd say for most couples out there, men don't typically have the say in that, right? It's typically the wife that gets to decide when you're gonna get married and like in terms of the date. An old friend was telling me, he goes the only decision that the man gets in the marriage, or the only decision that the man gets in that whole process, is deciding when he wants to propose. After he decides, after he pops the question, opens the ring, he loses all control. She takes control of the planning and the dates, and it basically becomes a situation of the man just saying, hey, you tell me when to be there and I'll do it. I'm gonna make sure to tell me when to be there and I'll do it, but let's make sure it's not between September and December. Maybe we'll live stream that for you. Spotlight Productions, crazy weekend, from the refs to the Sun Belt to the blowouts. Again, wild stuff, wild stuff. Again, and we talked more about that in our recap earlier yesterday. We talked more about it today, and I'm sure we'll talk plenty about it tomorrow as well with our 10,000 subscriber celebration. Talk about that. And I'll take this spotlight. That'll be the last question we'll take there. But I want to give a shout out to Ring. Mr. Ring over here found us this morning from Facebook. Look at that. From Facebook. Great content, new subscriber, and we appreciate you. I love that, man. Hey, so my dad apparently threw out a Facebook post. I think he was hyping up the 10,000 subscriber mark as well. So we're going to be celebrating that again tomorrow night. So, hey, I'm glad you found us, man. He says, woo pigs. We got a lot of Arkansas fans on the chat today. Got a guy from Atkins and France, and now Ring. So super pumped to have you with us, part of the GE Nation. Welcome to the team, and thanks for subscribing. We're thrilled to have you. We're really pumped to have you. Everybody, welcome Ring, man. We had Max join us last week, new member of the family, and now we got one here as well. We're really excited to have you with us. Just talking college football year round, baby. That's what we do. And last question from Spotlight Productions before we wrap things up tonight, or this morning. I always get my times mixed up. Roughing the passer, pass interference calls. I could use more definition on those. What are my thoughts on that? I fully 100% agree. I think the roughing the passer calls are getting a little overboard. They put that new rule change out, basically saying that the quarterback, I think they said, is a defenseless player now. So basically, almost like you can't hit them. If they're starting to be in the process of throwing, you can't hit them, which we saw some examples of that this Saturday where they were getting hit as they threw. It's very loose, interpretation, I feel like, of the new rule, but I still think it's overboard. I still think targeting is overboard. I think with targeting, I think a lot of the time for me, it's, like to take example, the LSU targeting we saw a couple weeks ago where the guy literally leapt forward with his head. That clearly was targeting. That is textbook targeting. He launched with his head. That is a good targeting call. But there are a lot of examples where you see a player hit someone with their helmet, and you can tell it's not intentional. It is, the guy catches the ball, he starts going down, I'm going in for the tackle. So as I'm stooping down to make the tackle, and the guy's coming down with the ball, I hit him in the head. Is it on purpose? No. Was I trying to do it? No. Was it malicious? No. It's just the way players fall, the way players land. I think a lot of the time you can tell. You can tell if a guy comes in there and launches with his head or purposely hits him with his head. Accidents do happen, though. And I think we see too many. And my thing is, if you want to keep calling targeting for that, fine. But don't take 20 minutes to review it. That's what they do. Don't sit there and, eject a player for that. Especially if they get ejected in the second half. They miss the first half of the next game. I mean, it's overboard. Eject him for the rest of the game if you want. I still think that's ridiculous. I think a penalty is fine. I think the penalty does enough unless it's clearly malicious, and then you can do the ejection. That's how I do it. It's like a flagrant 1 and a flagrant 2 in basketball. Flagrant 1, you don't get ejected. It's like, hey, shouldn't have done that. Okay, other team gets the free throws, and the ball or whatever. But flagrant 2, and you're out. I think that's kind of what we should start doing in football when it comes to targeting. Pass interference, wildly inconsistent. We'll never know what pass interference is. The refs are wildly inconsistent with that. Same with roughing the passer, wildly inconsistent with that. If you're 100% in motion, how can you stop rushing when you're trying to get a sack? It's hard, right? I mean, it's one of those things that when you're running full speed trying to sack the quarterback, and as soon as he lets go of the ball, you got to put on the brakes. And you got to almost try to hold the quarterback up. So I'm running full speed. He lets go of the ball. I'm still got all this momentum that I'm carrying, but I almost have to, instead of ramping up the quarterback, I grab him, to hold him up. That way, it's almost like, someone's running and you, catch them like that, to try to slow them down. Put your arm in front of them to slow them down, and that's kind of what it is. So you can't stop your momentum. It's tough. Typically with the roughing the passer rule, it's like 2 steps. So the quarterback throws, and you still have 2 steps as the defender before you can hit him. So 2 steps hit, it's okay. More than 2 steps, it's a penalty. But that has not really been called as often anymore. There's just anytime the quarterback gets hit with the ball out of his hands, it's a penalty. That's not how it works, in my eyes. Great question though. And then last question from Corbin Ashford. We talked about that earlier, but I do want to address it. What do I think of J.J. McCarthy starting at quarterback for Michigan? I think that's the right decision. McNamara got the job last year. Thought he did well, helped him get to the playoff. Good for him. But I think a lot of people wanted to see J.J. McCarthy, felt that McCarthy was the better quarterback. Harbaugh gave them each a fair chance against inferior opponents. Colorado State and Hawaii. I mean, both teams were not great by any means. And McCarthy made the most of his opportunity. McNamara didn't. And even last week, if it was close, McNamara got put in late in the game for a couple passes and still threw an interception against Hawaii. And that did not help his case at all. So McCarthy is the man. He's more dual threat. Seems to be more electric. Gives this Michigan offense a bigger boost than they already had. So yeah, I think that is the correct decision for Harbaugh in Ann Arbor. I think McCarthy is the right guy going forward, unless he starts to tank. The good thing with Michigan is you've got 2 quarterbacks. If one of them goes down or one of them starts to struggle, you have an experienced guy to put in as your backup. But I think McCarthy is the correct guy to start. All right, I think that's going to do it here at the Gridiron Expert, guys. Another hour-ish long live stream to start your morning. Good morning, football. Good morning, Gridiron. Maybe that's what we'll start calling the show. But we appreciate all of you guys for showing up today. We've got a new subscriber, a new member of the GE fam. We got Ring. Don't know his exact name, but he's here. Loves the content. Want to real quick before we start to say our goodbyes again, promote 2 things. First off, the celebration tomorrow night, right back here on the channel, 7 p.m. Central Time. 7 p.m. Central Time, we are celebrating the 10,000 subscriber milestone. That's a huge, huge deal. Something that we could not have accomplished without you guys. So make sure to show up, show out. Let's have some fun. Also, guys, as always, continue to like, comment, subscribe. Most of you already have, of course, but do that. Check out the expert picks, again, over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Again, some of the best college football and NFL picks in the entire country. So, Mr. Ring, if you're new, sports gambling, I know it's legal in Arkansas. Take a look at that. Hitting over 70% of our bets last week, over 65% on the year. We're killing it against the spread. We've been very, very fortunate. Very, very happy with our start. So make sure you go take a look at that. Sign up for our team today. We really appreciate that. And we have a very special stream planned if we can reach 100 expert pick subscriptions. And right now, we're kind of on pace to do that, but every single one counts. So make sure you go check that out. Check out everything down in the description below. We've got a lot of great offers and content down there for you guys to check out that'll kind of help you out year round. But want to continue to promote that, guys, because again, with this being the gig, we appreciate all the super chats and the expert picks and the views and the likes. Hit that like button on your way out if you haven't already. And continue to help the channel grow, guys. You are the reason we're celebrating tomorrow. You're the reason that we do what we do. Let's keep building it and expanding the GE Nation and the GE family. So, Clement, have a great day. Matthew Hazelhorse, I love your comment. Your girlfriend and her family are bigger football fans than me, so he doesn't have to worry about that with the wedding. He's like, I'm good. We are not getting married in the fall. So, hey, you're a very, very lucky man. Lucky man. I love it. But Matthew, congrats on the win. Thanks for stopping by. Spotlight Productions. Thanks for stopping by. Ring, again, welcome to the family and the GE Nation. Scotty, Hogfan in France, Spencer, Shane, I love it. Who else we got here? Want to give some shout outs? DM, of course. Big time shout out to him. Steven, Talk His Pick, Cash Money. We appreciate you and all your support. Mr. Bloodline, all the way from Atkins. Thank you guys all for your support and for stopping by the stream today. Spotlight Productions again, we appreciate you. You guys have a great rest of your day. Stay tuned again today, 1 p.m. Central Time. We will have our own GE Top 25 rankings. Thought the AP poll was bad? Rest assured, ours will be 10 times better. Thought it was bad? We agree. Ours is going to be the way it should be. So stay tuned for that and all the content we have coming out these next few days. And we will see you all back here to celebrate 10,000 subscribers.